You ever wake up one day and realize that the guy yelling at you through your phone about liver, masculinity, and ancient wisdom might actually be the biggest fraud of them all? That's the moment I had, man. And from there, from that second, I knew we weren't just dealing with some influencer doing gimmicks for clicks. We were looking at a full-blown operation, a marketing machine, a dangerous illusion dressed up in raw meat and tribal slogans. Look, man, let me just start off by saying this. We live in a world where people are desperate for answers, desperate for role models, desperate for something to believe in. And sometimes out of that desperation, we latch onto larger-than-life figures, the guys with shredded abs, the raw meat in hand, and the primal roars echoing through TikTok and Instagram like some kind of modern gladiator cry. You know who I'm talking about. The Liver King. Yeah, this dude shows up out of nowhere, walking barefoot, screaming about ancestral tenets, holding bull testicles in one hand and a femur in the other, selling people on the dream that if you just go back to your roots, if you just eat like your ancestors and live outside the system, you'll be unstoppable. You'll be jacked, full of testosterone, and immune to the garbage of modern life. And I'm not going to lie, I was intrigued. I had the guy on my radar, everybody did. But what started as a fascinating glimpse into an alternative lifestyle quickly turned into something way darker. Because behind the theatrics, behind the beard, the chainmail, the exaggerated masculinity, was a machine. A carefully constructed brand built not on authenticity, but on deception. And now we're talking about a restraining order against me? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this spiraled into something so ridiculous that I have to sit here and expose the absolute insanity of it. Because this isn't about beef liver. This isn't about diet. This is about what happens when a man builds an empire on lies and then panics when someone holds up a mirror. Let's rewind a bit. Liver King was everywhere, right? Podcasts, shorts, reels, every damn algorithm was feeding you this guy's shirtless sermons. But the message, man, it was dangerous. Not just because he was claiming to be all natural, even though he was juiced to the gills, but because he was selling that image to millions. Kids, adults, guys who were just insecure and looking for direction. And here's the kicker. It wasn't just about raw organs and barbarian cosplay. There was an entire supplement empire underneath it. Millions in sales are riding on the back of a lie. And when Derek from More Plates, More Dates finally dropped that bombshell, the email receipts, the detailed cycle plans, the proof that Liver King was on enough gear to turn a horse into a Marvel superhero, the whole house of cards started shaking. I talked about it. I told the truth. I called out the BS. And that's when it got interesting. Suddenly, I'm the villain. Suddenly, Liver King's team is whispering about legal actions, PR retaliation. And boom, now we're looking at a restraining order against a guy who speaks into a mic and tells people not to fall for frauds. That's not just weak, it's Orwellian. It's like we're in some backwards reality where speaking facts gets you silenced. But let me be clear, I didn't expose Liver King to be petty. I did it because people were getting hurt. Physically, mentally, financially. You had guys injecting themselves with God knows what, trying to catch up to a physique that was sold to them as natural. You had people buying liver supplements thinking it was some ancient shortcut to masculinity when the real secret was sitting in a damn fridge labeled TRT. So now here we are, the truth's out, the fantasy is shattered, and the backlash begins. But what people don't realize is when someone builds their identity on a performance, when their entire empire is propped up by illusion, they can't survive exposure. And instead of taking responsibility, instead of saying, yeah, I lied, they lash out, they send lawyers, they play victim, but I don't scare easy. I've been in this game too long, I've seen too much, and I refuse, absolutely refuse, to let silence be the cost of honesty. Because this isn't just about one guy with abs and a fake ancestral lifestyle. This is about a bigger epidemic. Fake experts, online cult leaders, social media salesmen packaging themselves as prophets. And it's our responsibility, mine, yours, anyone with a platform, to cut through the noise and say, that's not okay. You don't get to trick people into worshiping you and then hide behind lawyers when the curtain drops. That's not how it works. Not on my watch. You know what blows my mind? Man, it's not just the fact that Liver King lied, it's how many people defended it even after the truth came out. That's the scary part. When someone creates a cult of personality so strong, so magnetic, that even when the mask slips, his followers say, nah, he's still the king. And listen, I get it. People are hungry for structure. They want to believe that eating raw spleen and doing weighted bear crawls can save them from the emptiness of modern life. That if they just suffer enough, if they disconnect from the grid, eat nose to tail, and scream into the void, they'll finally feel whole. But here's the brutal truth. Pain alone doesn't make you powerful. Authenticity does. And that's the one thing this guy never had. What he did have was a perfectly tuned algorithm. Think about it. Every move was a flex, dragging chains through the streets, eating raw testicles, growling about ancestral tenets while simultaneously running a multi-million-dollar business selling pills and powders. And all of it was engineered to hijack your attention. It wasn't about health. It was about dominance, psychological dominance. You know how dangerous that is? That's cult leader territory. That's how manipulation works. Get you emotionally invested in the image and then exploit the hell out of it. And when someone like me, someone who just asks questions and speaks his mind, says, hey man, this doesn't add up, they don't counter with facts. They counter with lawyers. Think about that for a second. I didn't dig through the dude's trash. I didn't show up at his house. I didn't fabricate lies. I spoke on a podcast about public information. I said what we all saw, that the emperor has no clothes, and what he does have is a syringe behind his liver. And that was enough for him to call it harassment? Enough to throw legal threats my way. That's a man who's scared. Not angry, scared. Scared of the truth. Scared that if one more domino falls, the whole primal kingdom comes crashing down. But here's where it gets deeper. You start pulling threads and realize this wasn't just one man's delusion. It was a network. Influencers, marketing firms, supplement distributors, all tied together in this illusion of ancestral living, and none of it grounded in reality. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were pushing impossible standards, cashing in on insecurities, and weaponizing masculinity. And I'm supposed to shut up about that? No chance. You can't build a fake throne, sit on it, scream, I'm natural, rake in cash, and then cry victim when someone calls bullshit. Not in my world. I've talked to real experts, real bodybuilders, real doctors. They all said the same thing. There's no way you get that big, that lean, that vascular without pharmaceuticals, period. And yet this guy had the balls to not only lie about it, but attack the people telling the truth. Nah, that's not how we're doing things in 2025. We're not protecting frauds anymore. We're not romanticizing liars just because they flex hard and talk loud. And that's the core of it, man. Truth matters. Whether you're a celebrity, a scientist, or a savage, your integrity is the real measure of strength. And when that goes out the window, so does your message. So yeah, when Liver King sent out his legal hounds, I didn't flinch. I leaned in because I want that smoke, not out of ego, out of duty. Because I've got young listeners. I've got men who look up to me for guidance, for wisdom, for clarity in this noise-soaked world. And I'm not about to betray them by letting a fraud dominate the narrative. I'll take the hits, I'll take the heat. Because if it wakes people up, if it makes even one person say, damn, maybe I shouldn't inject myself based on a guy who eats pancreas on camera, then it's worth it. And let me just say this, it's not about destroying someone. I don't want Liver King to disappear. I want him to change, to come clean, to help rebuild what he broke. Because at the end of the day, people still need strong voices. We still need leaders, but not if they're fake. Not if they're selling strength from the shadows while living a lie behind the lens. This restraining order attempt, that's desperation. That's smoke and mirrors. And no piece of paper is going to stop me from speaking what's true. I don't care how shredded you are, how primal you act. If you sell lies for profit, I'm coming for the truth with a microphone. So buckle up because we're just getting started. Let me just say it straight. No restraining order, no cease and desist, no carefully worded legal document is ever going to silence me from telling the truth. Ever. That's not how I operate. I didn't build this platform to bend to cowards. I built it for truth, for conversations that matter, for exposing the rot in systems built on ego and lies. And when a guy like Liver King, a dude who climbed to fame screaming about strength, resilience, ancestral values, turns around and tries to legally gag anyone who calls out his deception, he doesn't look strong. He looks scared, weak, hollow, because real strength isn't loud. It doesn't need a gimmick. It doesn't hide behind contracts. Real strength owns the truth. Real strength says, yeah, I fucked up, and here's what I'm doing to fix it. But we never got that from him. We got excuses, we got polished apologies, read off a PR sheet, we got more marketing, more smoke. And in the background, We got the quiet attempts to muzzle the critics like me with restraining orders. That's not masculinity. That's not primal. That's corporate cowardice dressed in a loincloth. And listen, I know people are going to say, Joe, why do you care? Why not move on? But here's the thing. I care because people believed in this guy. People put their health, their time, their identity into the image he sold. Fathers trying to reconnect with their sons. Young men searching for purpose. Veterans dealing with trauma. All of them looking for a guide in a chaotic world. And this guy told them, I have the answer. Follow me. And what was behind that promise? Drugs, deception, a fitness fantasy sold for profit. And the worst part is he could have been something real. The idea, the message, the connection to nature, to discipline, to primal living, there's truth in that. I've talked about that for years. Cold exposure, discipline, fasting, lifting heavy shit, connecting with your body, that's real, that's powerful. But when you wrap it in a lie, when the foundation is synthetic while you preach natural, you poison the message. You turn wisdom into a hustle. And the people who looked up to you, they pay the price. I saw the DMs, I read the messages. Joe, I was following Liver King's program and ended up in the hospital. Joe, I started eating raw liver every day and my body's wrecked. Joe, I injected to try to catch up with what I thought was natural, and now I'm dealing with hormone crashes. You think I'm going to stay quiet after that? No fecking way. If anything, I'm louder. Because this isn't about one fake influencer anymore. This is about all of them. The supplement sharks, the TikTok trainers selling fake results, the fake doctors peddling miracle pills, the self-help gurus pushing trauma therapy they're not qualified to give. This is an ecosystem of exploitation, and it thrives in silence. That's why they file lawsuits. That's why they issue gag orders. That's why they try to spin the narrative. But what they don't realize, what Liver King forgot, is that truth has a frequency you can't cancel. Once it's out, it spreads. It infects the algorithm. It echoes in people's minds. It grows stronger the more you try to suppress it. So here's the reality, man. If Liver King wants to come clean, if he wants to drop the act and actually help people without the mask, I'll be the first one to shake his hand. I'm not out here to destroy people. I'm out here to protect people. But if he keeps hiding, keeps attacking those who speak the truth, keeps building a kingdom on half-truths and protein powder lies, then he better get ready for the consequences. Because in this world where misinformation travels faster than light, we need real voices. We need honesty. We need people who aren't afraid to say that's bullshit even when the lawyers are knocking. And I'm proud to be one of those voices. That's what this podcast is about. That's what this platform is for. Not for chasing trends, not for clout, for clarity, for pulling the veil back and saying, look, this is the truth. Make your own decision, but do it with your eyes open. So to everyone listening, don't let the beard, the abs, or the screams fool you. Look deeper. Ask harder questions. Demand honesty from the people you follow. And never let anyone threaten you into silence. Because when someone tries to shut you up with legal threats for telling the truth, that's the clearest sign you have to speak louder. Stay primal if you want. Eat liver if you like. But make damn sure you're doing it for you. Not for some guy pretending to be a warrior while hiding behind legal teams. Truth doesn't need protection. It protects itself. And I promise you this, as long as I've got this mic, I'll never stop speaking it.